December 2nd, 2025. It's 10:42 p.m. John Matthews, a man who thought he knew everything about his wife, Sarah, sits alone in his living room, scrolling through his phone. A simple scroll. A moment of boredom. But then, he stops. His eyes lock onto a video that will alter everything. It's a video, only a few seconds long, yet every frame feels like a lifetime. Sarah, his wife, the woman he loved. Dancing. Smiling. With another man. In that moment, John doesn't just see a dance. He sees betrayal. He sees a fracture in the world he thought was solid, in a life he believed was unbreakable. He can't look away. His heart pounds in his chest, his breath shallow, as the video plays again, and again. Not long ago, they were inseparable. John and Sarah Matthews, two souls bound together in love. They had weathered challenges, but their love seemed unshakable. At least, that's what John thought. He was the provider, the protector, the husband who believed in the sanctity of his vows. She, his partner, his confidant, the mother of his children. Together, they had it all. But now, a single video, a glimpse of something John never expected, had shattered everything he knew about his marriage. And as he sat there, trapped between disbelief and anger, one thought echoed louder than the rest: why? John Matthews had always believed that love could withstand anything. But in the cold silence of that moment, he realized that some betrayals cut too deep. And this one might just destroy him. By the time Sarah walks through that door, it will be too late. The man she once knew will be gone, replaced by someone unrecognizable. A man blinded by betrayal. And for Sarah, there would be no coming back. John Matthews, by all accounts, was a man who had it all figured out. A reliable, middle-class man living in a quiet suburb, working long hours at a corporate job, always striving to provide for his family.
Welcome to Shocking True Crime. Thanks to all our viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay with us for daily updates on the most shocking true crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe.
To his friends, colleagues, and even his neighbors, he was the model husband, dedicated, responsible, and proud of the life he built with Sarah. But behind the closed doors of their home, something was shifting, something he had failed to see. John was a man who rarely wore his emotions on his sleeve. He kept things inside, his frustrations, his desires, his doubts. He was a man of routine, of predictability. But as he scrolled through his phone that evening, as he stared at the life he thought he knew, his entire sense of reality would come crashing down. One moment, one video, and everything he thought he understood about his marriage would be shattered. Sarah Matthews was not just a wife. She was the mother of their children, the heart of their home, the woman John had promised to cherish forever. But as the years passed, she too began to change. The pressures of life, the challenges of raising children, and the unspoken weight of unmet needs slowly distanced her from John. What had once been a partnership filled with passion and understanding had become, over time, a quiet, simmering frustration. Sarah longed for more attention, more love, more connection. But John, consumed by his work, was blind to it all. Sarah's heart wasn't untouched by the wear of their years together. She felt the distance between them growing, an emotional void that John seemed unable or unwilling to fill. It wasn't that she didn't love him, it was that she was no longer seen. The nights when John came home late, tired from work, she had learned to accept the quiet solitude. But over time, acceptance turned into resignation. And with that resignation came a yearning for connection, for something outside the walls of their home, something to fill the space John's absence had left. At the party, Sarah found herself dancing with another man, not out of malice, but out of a need she couldn't express to John. The music, the laughter, the thrill of attention, it was a brief escape from the void she felt at home. But what started as a harmless moment would soon become a turning point, a decision that would haunt them both. John had no idea that his wife, the woman he thought he knew inside and out, was carrying a quiet ache he had failed to notice. What he didn't know, what neither of them realized, was that their marriage had long been on the edge of collapse. This video, this single moment in time, would ignite everything they had both been avoiding: unspoken pain, hidden desires, and the devastating consequences of ignoring what truly mattered. What John didn't know, what neither of them could have known, was that this moment, this discovery, was just the beginning. It would be the start of a tragedy that would leave no one unscathed. The next few hours would change everything. The man who had once been her protector, her partner, would become someone else, someone driven by emotion, by anger, by an overwhelming sense of betrayal. And Sarah, she would never see it coming. It was just a moment, a brief second captured on film, but to John, it felt like a lifetime. Sarah, the woman he vowed to love forever, laughing, dancing, sharing a connection with another man. The chemistry between them was undeniable. The ease with which she moved, the smile on her face, it was a look John hadn't seen in their own marriage for years. With each replay, the questions in John's mind grew louder. How long had this been going on? What was she thinking? The more he watched, the angrier he became. It wasn't just the sight of Sarah with another man, it was the feeling of being replaced, the crushing realization that someone else had what he thought was his. His mind raced with accusations. Why wasn't I enough? Only weeks ago, Sarah had tried to speak her truth. She wanted more from their relationship, more from John. But John, always consumed by his work, dismissed her concerns. He couldn't see that the distance between them wasn't just physical, it was emotional. And now, in that video, it was all too clear. Sarah had found something that John couldn't offer: attention, affection, connection. Something she had been yearning for but couldn't ask for. The moment on the screen wasn't just a betrayal, it was a culmination of everything John had ignored. And in his mind, that betrayal demanded a response, a reckoning. As the night dragged on, the images on his phone became more than just a betrayal, they became an obsession. Each time the video played, John felt a knot tighten in his chest. The disbelief faded, replaced by a steady, burning anger. The familiar face of the woman he loved now seemed foreign to him, strange, distant, even dangerous. John tried to rationalize the situation. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe I'm overreacting. She's just having fun. It's harmless, right? But deep down, he knew it wasn't harmless. His mind began to circle in on itself, torn between doubt and jealousy, between love and anger. What did she mean by that look? What does this mean for me? The questions gnawed at him, eating away at whatever calm he had left. The rational thoughts, the attempts at control, were slipping away. The paranoia grew, fueled by the hurt, the sense of betrayal. Was Sarah really the woman he had married? Had he missed all the signs, the little things that should have mattered? Every moment he'd spent working late, every time he'd brushed off her needs, had they led to this? John's mind spiraled deeper. The questions, the doubt, they consumed him, until all he could see was Sarah and the man in the video. The thoughts clashed violently with his image of the life they had built. The more he replayed the video, the more distant Sarah became. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was something darker, something that had been brewing beneath the surface for far too long. As his mind spun out of control, John felt the growing distance between his rational self and the man he was becoming. What once felt like a betrayal was now a deep, uncontrollable obsession. And in that darkness, the line between justification and madness began to blur. By the time Sarah walked through the door, the man who greeted her wasn't her husband. He was someone else, someone consumed by jealousy, hurt, and rage. The man who had once promised to love her was now a stranger, driven by a sense of betrayal so deep that nothing could quell the storm raging inside him. John's inner turmoil reaches its peak. His mind races with 1,000 different scenarios, each one more disturbing than the last. His thoughts dart between anger and heartbreak, between wanting answers and wanting revenge. He tells himself that once Sarah walks in, he'll be calm, collected, rational, but deep down, he knows that won't happen. He can't stop what's coming. From Sarah's perspective, it's just another ordinary evening. She's exhausted from the day, her thoughts on the usual routine. She has no idea that the man she's walking toward is not the same one who kissed her goodnight the night before. She's unaware of the tension that clings to the air, the weight of John's stare that makes her uneasy. John doesn't speak at first. He just holds up the phone, the screen flashing the images that have consumed his every thought. Sarah's face drops when she sees what he's showing her. The shock is immediate, followed by confusion. She opens her mouth to speak, but the words she had rehearsed in her mind earlier now fail her. Sarah tries to explain herself. She tries to offer the context, the reasons behind her actions, but it's too late. In that moment, explanation would be useless. The seed of doubt had already taken root, and the anger that had festered inside John was beyond reason. What once was love now felt like betrayal, raw, unforgiving betrayal. The air between them grows thick with tension. Words are exchanged, some cutting, others pleading, but none are heard. John's mind is lost in the chaos of his emotions, a storm of hurt, jealousy, and confusion. The man who had once promised to cherish her now only sees the woman who has betrayed him. In his eyes, Sarah is no longer the woman he loved, she is the woman who chose someone else. In that moment, the man who had once been her protector, her partner, became something else entirely, a man who would do anything to regain control. And Sarah? She had no idea just how quickly things would spiral out of her control. And then it happened. In a split second, the man who had loved her became the man who killed her. The calm facade John had worked so hard to maintain shattered in an instant. The man who had once promised to cherish her, to protect her, was now someone else entirely. A man blinded by rage. John's actions are swift and shocking. His mind is lost in the chaos, drowning out Sarah's frantic pleas. There's no room for reason, no time for hesitation. In that one moment, the years of frustration, jealousy, and unresolved pain that had festered between them erupted into violence. Sarah, still trying to comprehend what was happening, is caught completely off guard. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she looks at John, struggling to make sense of the transformation happening before her eyes. A moment of madness, a brief lapse in judgment. And just like that, everything changed. What was once a home filled with love and promise was now a crime scene, a house tainted by a tragic decision that could never be undone. The murder was committed in a fit of blind rage, an act that would forever alter the lives of everyone involved. And as the cold silence settled in, Sarah's lifeless body would soon be discovered, her life stolen in an instant by a man who had once loved her. In the immediate aftermath, John was left not with relief, but with an overwhelming wave of horror. The violence that had been born from jealousy and rage now lay before him, and what he saw was not a sense of triumph, but an unbearable emptiness. His mind screamed for answers, for justification, but there was none. The cold reality of what had just happened began to sink in slowly, each moment more suffocating than the last. John's world had turned upside down in a matter of minutes. The man who had promised to protect Sarah, to love her, now stood in the center of a nightmare of his own making. He couldn't move. He couldn't think. Every part of him screamed for the situation to rewind, for the moments of madness to take back what he had done, but there was no going back now. The irrevocable had been done. The police arrive, the chaos unfolding around him. The bright, blinding lights of the squad cars reflect off the walls, and John is overtaken by a chilling sense of finality. There's no escape. There's no turning back. The weight of the law is now closing in, and the consequences of his actions will soon be felt. In that moment, John is no longer a husband, a father, he is just a man caught in the irrevocable grip of his own mistake. As the door closed behind him, John's fate was sealed. The events of that night, the decisions he had made in a blind moment of fury, would haunt him, and his family, forever. As the investigation unfolded, the evidence seemed clear: a jealous husband, a crime of passion. The neighbors spoke of John's temper, his frustrations with Sarah, and the growing distance between them. The scene painted a familiar picture: an argument gone wrong, a moment of rage that led to irreversible consequences. But as the detectives dug deeper, they began to uncover far more than they expected. The initial theories seemed to fit the evidence: a marriage plagued by jealousy and frustration, a heated argument that spiraled out of control. But as they started reviewing the evidence, including John's frantic phone activity and the video Sarah had been caught in, the narrative became less clear. There were inconsistencies, small details that didn't add up. John's alibi, his state of mind, and even the way he reacted to the situation, none of it fit perfectly into the story they were initially being told. Forensic evidence from the scene was undeniable: fingerprints, traces of blood, signs of a violent struggle. The video on John's phone added fuel to the fire, showing the explosive jealousy that led to Sarah's death. But as investigators analyzed John's frantic calls, his search history, and his behavior after the crime, a more disturbing picture began to emerge. But the deeper they dug, the more complicated the story became. As they spoke to those closest to the couple, they uncovered details about Sarah's frustrations, her isolation, her growing distance from John, and the cracks in their seemingly perfect life. The truth, it seemed, was not so clear-cut. What drove John Matthews to commit such a heinous act? Experts weighed in: jealousy, control, abandonment. Forensic psychologists and behavioral experts began to unravel the emotional layers that led to the tragedy. They suggested that John's inability to confront the growing emotional distance in his marriage, coupled with his deep-seated need for control, created a dangerous storm. Psychologist, interview. John's emotional neglect, his obsession with maintaining control, and his unchecked rage created the perfect storm. The ripple effect of John's actions spread far beyond him, touching every person who knew Sarah, leaving them with questions that would never be answered. The tragedy left a ripple effect: an innocent family torn apart by a single moment of jealousy. A moment that would change everything, forever. In the end, it wasn't just the betrayal that led to Sarah's death. It was the unchecked emotions, the silent distance in the marriage, the inability to confront issues before they became irreparable. John's anger, his inability to express his hurt, and his growing jealousy clouded his judgment, turning a moment of hurt into a moment of violence. And Sarah, too, had her part: her loneliness, her emotional distance, her silent yearning for something more that she couldn't bring herself to voice. The lack of communication between them created a powder keg, one that would explode in a tragic, irreversible moment. The moral question now remains: how much of this tragedy could have been prevented? What if John had found a way to confront his feelings of neglect before they grew into something monstrous? What if Sarah had found the courage to open up about her frustrations instead of burying them under a veil of resignation? The truth is, relationships are fragile, built on communication, trust, and the ability to confront the hard truths before they tear us apart. Sometimes, it takes something as devastating as this tragedy to make us realize just how important it is to nurture our relationships, to be honest with each other, and to seek help before the smallest cracks grow into deep chasms. If only John and Sarah had found the courage to address their feelings, perhaps the outcome would have been different. John Matthews' crime serves as a grim reminder: unchecked emotions, jealousy, and the inability to communicate can lead to devastating consequences. Sarah's life was cut short, and the lives of those left behind were changed forever. The children who lost their mother, the family who lost a daughter and sister, and John himself, who lost everything he once held dear. A single act of rage, fueled by years of unspoken pain, destroyed them all. At the core of this tragedy lies a simple truth: communication is key. The things left unsaid, the pain left unspoken, can slowly fester and lead to irreversible harm. What started as a marriage, full of love and promise, ended in a moment of violence, a tragedy that no one could have predicted. How far would you go if you believed you were betrayed? Would you have stopped before it was too late?
Welcome to Shocking True Crime. Thanks to all our viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay with us for daily updates on the most shocking true crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe.